Hi, everybody. As you'll see tonight, I am not Pastor Rob Buckingham, but I am standing in for Pastor Rob for his regular Q&A Tuesday night, Facebook Live and on YouTube. For those who don't know me, my name's Sandra Cavallo and I'm part of the pastoral team at Bayside Church. And tonight I'm super, super excited to be introducing you to two newest members to Bayside Church, and that is Josh Hill and Caitlin Gillespie, who've joined our team in the youth ministry leader roles. And so we're going to be doing a bit of a Q&A tonight, just getting to know them a little bit more and hearing their hearts. But it's also an opportunity for anyone to ask any questions of them. And so if you do have questions, feel free, like we do every week, just to post it in the chat. And we will get around to your questions. And so just to kick it off, Caitlin, tell me just a little bit about yourself in a nutshell, in a really short, condensed nutshell.
Short, condensed nutshell. Yeah, so my name's Caitlin. I'm originally from Adelaide. I moved here a couple of weeks ago, and in a nutshell, I'm just a pretty easygoing person. I tend to I feel like when you ask this question, you expect some hobbies, but I tend to have a bunch of different things. I was saying the other day, and I'll just be really scattered amongst them. So I'll do a lot of things, but not insanely passionate about them. So I'll just surfing, hiking, and whatnot.
Fabulous, fabulous. And look, I'm super impressed because I've said this to a number of people and to yourself that when South Australia was looking like to go into lockdown, you literally caught wind and got in the car and drove across the border. Pretty super impressive. How long did it take you to do a sort of that kind of backflip and get in the car?
Yeah, so I woke up at 10:30 on a Monday morning, and then I live with a roommate, so she was pretty much I think you're going to have to either go or not, and we decided to go, and she helped me pack my bag in the car, so that was done in about 2 hours. And then Victoria didn't have any word of closing the borders yet, so I was like, I'll wait to see how long I can pretty much push it. And then they didn't reveal that they were going to end it that night. So I was like, I reckon I'll be able to get away with going tomorrow morning. So I had friends over and family over on Monday night as a bit of a send off. And then I left Tuesday morning.
Wow. And here we are, and we have you here.
And here we are.
Well, great to have you here in Melbourne. And Josh, tell us a little bit about yourself.
My name's Josh. I'm 22 and been in the church for a very long time, been in church world for a long time. I love my sport, absolutely love footy. As you can see in the background, I'm a big Hawk supporter. And yeah, like Caitlin, I like surfing. I just love any sport, really. I go for a lot of teams in every sport. So yeah, and love my family. And yeah, that's me.
Great to know. Now, Josh, I've heard you say that it's been your dream. I've seen a post or two on Facebook and Insta where you said it's been your dream since the age of 12 to be in this role that now finally you are in. So I guess, what I want to know is what are you most looking forward to in this role? What is your passion about this role?
For me, it comes down to just seeing young people live a life that's worth, I guess, living, and not to just throw it away. And I don't want to just force the Bible on people and force Jesus on them, but I want to help them realize that Jesus is the way that we need to live our life, and we can use that and empower them to just take Jesus with them along the journey and put him into their life instead of just throwing him at them. And yeah, I just want to see them live a life that's worth living.
Beautiful. That's really inspirational, and knowing Jesus personally and intimately is such an important part, and it's a journey, it's a walk. You're exactly right. You don't throw Jesus at anybody. We don't force it down people's throats.
No.
Mm-hmm.
And Caitlin, you've been involved in youth ministry at your previous churches for a while. What inspires you to serve in youth?
Yeah, and interestingly, like very similar, which is crazily, God, I feel like I have a very similar response to Josh, where I think of it as in, I feel like as humans, we're created to like want something greater than what's on this like earth right in front of us. And I feel like we are always looking for something more to like satisfy us and meet our needs and whatnot. And I feel like as youth, that's like particularly true. And there's so many like things that come into that. And I feel like I'm just like super passionate about seeing youth fill up on God rather than fill up on the things that are around them. And just to, I'm so with Josh in the whole way that like we're not forcing Jesus on you, but we're like living our lives and we're going to support you in a way that shows you this incredible love that you can have from a greater being on this earth, and that can satisfy every need and that can satisfy every like hole in you and every brokenness and that stuff. So I find that super, that's my passion for youth ministry, is just to support youth through that in a particularly like difficult time during their life and through a time of where there's some identity crisis and whatnot. And
well, you raised a really important point. How have you discovered that for yourself? Because obviously when you're leading in a role, it has to come out of your own life and your own experience. How have you discovered that for yourself?
Yeah. So
that's for you, Caitlin.
So for me particularly, I think I've definitely gone through the whole into youth and into young adults experience where I was filling up on things that weren't of God and that weren't and that were sinful and whatnot. And I grew up in a predominantly like non-Christian environment in school and whatnot, and I did go through those experiences. And it was only probably a couple years ago that I like fully experienced the gravity of what it means to follow Christ and for me in my life, it looks like I had all like these experiences when I was younger and I went through all that, but I hadn't found like an incredible joy until I was sitting in God's presence. And that's what like brings my passion out, is that like I had this like really cool experience where I was like, oh, I'm not feeling God and whatnot, and I'm gonna focus on my friends and focus on this and that, and then I had this incredible experience where I just simply realized, I'm like, wait, this joy that I'm experiencing in God's presence, I can't get anywhere else. And that for me has like been a really big part of my life and shaping my heart for ministry and heart for youth.
Great, fabulous. Because as you've experienced that, you can explain that to young people, to youth, how they can discover it for themselves as well.
Yeah.
Josh, I'm curious, to ask you the question, what do you think are some of the real challenges that youth are facing today that you can see? And Caitlin, I'll get your input in this after Josh has made mention of it too.
For me, growing up, I always struggled with just having this pressure put on me. And as I kept growing up and kept being involved in some young people's lives, I saw the same thing. And there's this perceived pressure that they put on themselves. And then from that comes anxiety and depression. And I feel like that is a huge, huge topic right now across the world, especially in 2020. But I feel like it's been a topic that maybe it's been talked about, but not acted on within young people's lives. Or it's acted on way too late, and it's acted on because of something happening. And I grew up with a lot of people around me mentoring me. And for me, being in this role, I want to be that mentor for someone else and for a group of young people that are struggling. And every generation struggles, but it's up to the older generations to take them under their wing and really care for them. And I'm excited for us to do that together.
That's a really good point. So do you think young people are looking for older people to mentor them? Are they, or do they want to just hang around with their own friends?
I think a bit of both, but I think we need to empower these young people to be able to care for each other and then give them something from us to tell them that they shouldn't be afraid to come and talk to us and have those conversations with us before it gets too late, that they've gone down a track that they can't really come back from. And I personally have seen a couple of people go down the track of suicide, and that's a really, really big struggle, and it breaks my heart to see young people go through that. And I don't want to keep waking up and going to bed each night and looking at the news and another young person's taken their life. And I want to be able to wake up in the morning and see the news of going, this next generation is doing something incredible. So, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And Caitlin, your background, well, you've just finished your bachelor. It's in social work, is that correct? Yeah, and you're about to do a master's in psychology. Yeah. So can you speak into what you see, both with your experience in youth, but also with your understanding of your studies, just in regards to that anxiety and depression that Josh just mentioned?
Yeah, and definitely where Josh was going with it in the whole pressure thing, I think in adolescence particularly, it's kind of this real transitional stage where it's like you're not a child, but you're not an adult either, and you're going through this transition where you're almost expected to figure out what you're doing. Like everybody gets the questions from like year 8, or like, what do you want to do after school, or where do you see yourself going? And you're expected to continue to act like an adult, but they're still in younger stages of life. And I think that that's a massive pressure that's placed on adolescents, is that they have to know what they're doing, or they have to have their life figured out, but they don't have that together, and that's fine because they're young. And I feel like that is a massive added pressure to it, is that, they're in this stage where they're almost like, where am I going with life, when the world's telling them that they should know where they're going. And then on top of that, there's the whole importance of peer relations and the importance of fitting in and going through a world where social media is normal. There's just so many dimensions that youth today are growing up with that just continually add to pressure and continually add to mental health topics that we're talking about here.
Yeah, fantastic. And that is going to be I'd love to hear both of you share a little bit about how you think social media comes into the fore of that as well. How that contributes in building relationships and not building relationships, like the barriers that it may create. Josh, do you want to comment anything about that? Just how social media helps. And
social media it's a weird thing. It's ever changing, and it keeps growing day by day. And I think you can either be at one end of the spectrum of going, oh, this can be used for incredible things and everything about social media is amazing and it's empowering and all that. Or you could be at the other end and go, this is damaging some people's lives because they're comparing themselves to influencers and people that are on social media that are higher up. And I personally see it as a really good tool to reach out into communities. And it's a way that young people communicate with each other. They use Instagram to post photos of what they're doing and comment on things and tag people in things, and then use Facebook Messenger to just keep in contact. And back in my parents' days, they were writing letters to each other, but now it's just all typing and messaging each other, and they can do it whenever they want, whether it's 1 a.m. or 10 a.m. Like it's pretty amazing, and I see it as an amazing thing, but also see the darker side of it and how online bullying has become a really big issue in the world. And I'd love to see that go down a lot, and see people just, if you can't say it to someone's face, then don't say it at all. And yeah.
If you haven't got the courage, it's easier just to hide behind a screen and make comments rather than say it face to face to someone. Absolutely. Bullying, we're seeing a huge increase in that, and we need to deal with that so that kids can feel safe and feel safe in being able to build relationships with others. Caitlin, can I ask, actually, before I do, I want to say hello to a couple of people. We've got Leslie, who's part of the youth teams, who's just saying, yay, youth team. Great to have. Say hi to Ross Illingworth and Rachel Lamberton and Jessie Strickland. And we also have Kelly Walden saying it's great to hear young people talk like this. And so, yes, it is. And so, any questions for these guys, please do not hesitate. If you're a parent and you have some questions about how to, engage your youth, this is a time to, just comment in the chat, and love to be able to answer any of those questions. Just going back to you, Caitlin, can you think about a moment in your life so far that has had quite a huge impact on you and on your view and understanding of God? Is there something that comes to mind for you of that?
Yeah, for sure. I think I've had a few of those moments, obviously, but the thing that just comes to mind is probably the most recent one. And it's not like some incredible like moment. But for me, I feel like growing up in definitely like a Christian environment, like in church, with a Christian family, it's definitely hard to see God at work in and around you. And I have a friend who, I'm sure she copied it from somewhere, so I'm not going to give her credit for saying this, but when you're underwater, you can't feel like water being flicked in your face in a way. And that's something that I definitely lived in the reality of for ages. And for me, I was just continuously serving and in the church and whatnot, but never feeling that like almost personal relationship with God, and almost like there was some barrier there. And I have this moment that completely challenged like my inner thoughts and like my unconscious like beliefs that I didn't even know I had. And it was a time where, I was serving in church and I was doing youth and young adults ministry and up the front preaching. And I was preaching about like this love that God has for us and this incredible, loving God and caring God. But I almost wasn't believing it in regards to myself. And I had this moment where I have a friend who said this random one-off comment in like a Bible study that was kind of not to do with the conversation, and it wasn't directed at anyone, but she said like the love that God has for us isn't based on anything that we can do for him, but it's based on the grace that's within him. And I went home and I was like kind of thinking it over, and I went home and I couldn't sleep that night, and had for my first moment ever had like the moment where God put a word on my heart, and it was just surrender to him. And I was like, nah, I'm just going to push it to the side. Like, this isn't God speaking, because he's never done it before to me. And then 30 minutes later, I still couldn't sleep. So I was like, all right, God, what are you saying to me right now? And I heard him say, surrender to me and I can show you what I can do with a broken heart. And for me, that just like was an incredible moment, and something that's completely changed like my thinking of where God is, because he is a whole God and a loving God, and he uses people not because they're full and not because they're whole. He uses broken people for his incredible ministry. And it just reminded me ever since then is that we just have like a personal God, and we have a God who like sees us and calls us by his name and not any other name. And since then, I like have noticed changes in the way that I walk into situations with a confidence and authority, and knowing that, I'm not great, I'm not extraordinary, like I'm just an ordinary person, but I have an extraordinary and personal God. And so that's something that I find when I think of that.
And it's so important to have that revelation of a personal God, because it's what sustains, and it's what sustains you in ministry and life, to know that you have that personal encounter, that personal God that cares for you beyond what you do. It reminds me of that passage of when, Jesus becomes baptized, and, he hasn't started his public ministry yet. He hasn't done anything yet that's sort of worthy of note. And yet God says this amazing thing: here is my son whom I love and whom I'm well pleased with. And I think it's having that encounter where you are loved. You're loved beyond any shadow of a doubt, and that spurs you on to serve.
Yeah, 100%. And just like the
So,
whole when you're like growing up and you hear the incredible stories of God and like how he like breaks down walls and parts seas and can make mountains tremble, and just to know that that God is living within us is like an incredibly powerful thing.
Oh, absolutely. Very true. And Josh, can I throw the same question to you? Can you think of a time, a moment in your life that had such a huge impact on your view and understanding of God? Something that's personal to you.
Yeah, for me, it came straight after year 12. I struggled through school just doing school. I was never an academic person, so was never great at exams and tests and that type of thing. But always had just this strong faith with God and strong trust in him. But I got to year 12 and just had a lot of questions and felt like I wasn't able to get answers until I found a course that was like a gap year program. It's called Next. And they just allow you to have these real conversations and ask a lot of questions and try and get some answers. If you don't, then you get some backdrop and just some thoughts around those questions that you have. And for me, that was huge. I was a bit lost that year because I came out of year 12 and got a really bad ATAR and just had nowhere to go. I didn't know what to do. And I obviously wanted to do youth ministry, but I originally thought that I needed an ATAR to get straight into a bachelor or a diploma at a bigger college. So my parents encouraged me to just do this program, and it was amazing. It's life-changing. I learned about the Enneagram there. And
what are you, by the way? What are you on the Enneagram?
I'm a 3 on the Enneagram.
Go the 3s. Thank you very
much. So hated being boxed in at the
Caitlin,
start.
we know that you are.
I'm a 7.
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, we learned about that and just learned about ourselves a lot, which was awesome.
Yeah, and that is a brilliant program, Next. It's at Whitley College, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a brilliant. I know quite a few people who have gone there and highly recommend it. And so that's really encouraging, actually, to hear that, because so many young people who come through year 12 and they don't get the mark that they want. They think that is the end, so to speak, and really it hasn't been the end for you. It's been the start of many wonderful things.
It has, yeah, and ended up getting into the bachelor that I wanted to, and finished it 2 weeks ago, which is incredible. So for any year 12s out there, don't be discouraged by the score you get. You can still go for your dreams and do what you love. So, yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm going to throw, we've got some questions here, and I'm going to start with a light-hearted question. This is from, you're going with the serious one. Hang on. No, we'll go with this one. Thank you for sharing so beautifully and authentically. This is from Anita, who's our kids minister. Now, on a lighter note, what is the funniest thing you've had to do in youth? Oh. And I'm sure you've seen something.
I think for me it was getting shaving cream slapped in my face multiple times, or dressing up as a big fluffy dog, which was a lot of fun, but it was pretty funny at the same time.
I think it's funny because I never went to youth groups when I was young. They didn't exist where I went to church. And to think what kids can get up to today, I think it's brilliant. Have shaving cream and dress up as a dog. Okay, fabulous. Caitlin, what about you? Can you top that?
I feel like I haven't had to do anything super funny. I feel like anything that's funny has happened to me is just like off of my own clumsiness. And there's been countless times where I've slipped over on stage in like boots that I thought would be like have traction on the bottom of them, but they didn't, and it was in front of like 50 or 60 youth. So that's probably the funniest thing that happened to me, but it wasn't planned. It was just like my own uncoordination.
Well, hopefully you weren't hurt, and hopefully they didn't laugh you off stage.
Well, it wasn't hurt, but it definitely was laughed off.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm sure with you and the youth leaders, the volunteer team, I'm sure you're all going to dream up some wonderful things to do with the youth that are going to be on
Absolutely.
have some fun times, I imagine, up ahead.
Definitely.
Another question from Ross Illingworth, and he says, do we have a panic button for our Bayside youth if they're not okay? So I imagine what he's trying to ask here, what Ross is trying to say is, how can our youth get in contact if they're going through a rough time? I'm thinking that's what the question is in regards to. So do you guys want to speak into that, just how youth can, what they should do if they're not doing okay?
Yeah. I think particularly since Josh and I have only just come in, the relationship that youth have with the small group leaders, or connect group leaders, sorry, call it connect group leaders here, is insanely vital. And I applaud small group, connect group leaders for their relationships that they can form with youth. In terms of if they're not okay, Josh and I want everyone to know that, like, you can come to us, and this is literally why we're here, to support and to love on youth and to get them through tough times. But with that, knowing that you don't know us super well and you might not be comfortable with us. So in terms of Bayside Youth right now, like if you're struggling with anything, like reach out to your small group leaders. They're here, they're caring for you every single Friday night, they're showing up, volunteering their time, wanting to literally just be a part of your life, and this is a part of your life. But there's an incredible group of people here, including myself and Josh, and the youth leaders that are just literally wanting to love on you in any way that we can.
Yeah, well said. Beautiful. It's very important, and you're absolutely right. Where those relationships have been formed in small groups, especially this year, we've much just been running in small groups. It's so essential to rely on the relationships that have been formed in there and to feel safe to be able to communicate if one's not doing well.
Yeah, sure.
So just in relation to this year, I mean, this year's been crazy. It's a year like no other, as we know. And both of you have had very different experiences because you've lived in different states. Obviously, Josh, you're a Melbourneite, and Caitlin's from South Australia, from Adelaide. So totally different experiences of COVID. So I'd just be interested to hear from both of you, just some of the learnings for either of you. What have you learnt this year through COVID? What stood out to you? And it's from your own lived experience, obviously. Josh, do you want to speak into that?
Yeah, for me, it was patience. I just learned how to be patient with God and just wait on him. And in the end, this year for me has been incredible. I got engaged, I finished my Bachelor of Ministry and got a new job as well. So it has been an incredible year, and it's just been in God's timing for me. I just felt that at the start of the year, I just wasn't being patient. I was trying to rush through my Bachelor of Ministry and trying to rush through essays and just trying to get it done. And even just trying to rush through life as well, and just kept running instead of just walking and taking it a bit slower and taking a couple of deep breaths just to settle myself and relax a little bit and enjoy life. So yeah, for me, it was patience this year.
I have to say I relate. I think that it's part of our three in the Enneagram. We want to achieve and get things done, and so patience is always going to be something we're working on. But that's great insight. It's great that this has highlighted that as an area and as a learning. And for you, Caitlin, what are some things that that you've learnt through this year in COVID?
Yeah, so I've had a definitely different experience to you Victorians. My experience was way less trialing, and I didn't have to go into isolation for very long and whatnot. But one thing that I've learned is to just seek God out in places where you might not originally have sought him out. I think the whole just starting of coronavirus took a spin on so many different things in life, and even if our quarantine in Adelaide didn't last for very long, we had to come up with different ways to like meet in person and whatnot. And it's taken away those foundational, like core aspects of church almost, the going together on a Sunday and a Friday night for youth and whatnot. And for me, I've learned just how to like seek the Spirit and seek God out in just everyday life, like in His nature and in the people around me, and seeing God in them. That's something that I've found completely beneficial. Just because now coming out of it, well, going back into it with Victoria, but I came out of it in Adelaide and trying to get back into it with Victoria. I've just been able to have a completely different like picture of what God is, and a picture of what life is around me, from that real perspective shift in how we seek Him out.
Yeah, wonderful. And so it's trying to retain those lessons, isn't it? It's trying to retain the things that we've learnt through this year. I don't imagine years like this happening all the time. I mean, obviously there are periods in our history where they're really difficult, but then as you see, things get better. And so it's so easy to just want life to kick on, and we lose sight of the lessons that God puts right in front of us, those really magical moments. And it's often in the hard times, it's in the challenges of life that there is so much gold and so much learning and growth that comes out of it. So our vision, as you will probably know, is to courageously love and empower people to become like Jesus. And that's probably a new statement that you may not have heard, but that's our vision statement. So what does courageous loving look like for you? Caitlin, do you want to kick that off?
Yeah, so I think courageously loving people is just, for me in my life, it's going to be different to everyone, which is the cool part about it. But for me in my life, it's just inviting God into my life and saying, look, I am like an open vessel. How can you love through me? And I think that that's the most courageous thing we can do, because we're not putting a limit on where He can move and where He will move. Instead of that, just being like, use me for your will. And make me what I am, and burn my heart for what burns yours and whatnot. And I think that that's what it takes. It's just being open to where He's moving, and without any preconceived idea of where we can meet those standards, or what it's going to take time-wise or financial-wise or emotionally-wise, just to be like, look, I'm in it. I'll go as far as you want me to go. And I think that's the most courageous thing, just like completely putting faith into Him, and that He is going to work through you in His will. And it might be a bit testing. That's what courageous love means to me.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for sharing that with us. And Josh, what's it mean for you?
I think in similar way to Caitlin, for me it means asking God for what breaks His heart to break mine the same way. And I had the privilege last year of preaching a message on what breaks your heart. And for me, it was youth ministry struggling. Youth struggling. And yeah, for me to courageously love means loving like Jesus does. And no matter who you are or what you're going through, to love them and to love on them and to love on people. And just to accept everyone for who they are and what they believe in, and understand that and have that understanding as well. Because Jesus, when walking around, He didn't care who you were. He wanted to come up and talk to you. And it says that throughout the Bible. And I feel like we all need to do a better job of that, and just being more like Him in just going up to anyone and not being afraid to just talk to them and have a conversation with them. And you might disagree, but that's how God made us. We all have different opinions on things, but it's about listening to each other and understanding what each other's going through to courageously love one another in different ways.
Yeah, fantastic. And so often what happens in it can happen in youth, it can happen in adult circles, it can happen in any church, is you can get quite cliquey groups. And so have you guys got any thoughts about how you would try to encourage the youth to be open to embracing all different people? Not
I think I think one way that Bayside are already doing that is having the connect groups together with boys and girls, and there's no separation with that. I've been at 2 other youth groups that have had boys in one group and girls in another and not done a lot together. So I think they're already on top of it in that sense in including each other, and connect groups are an amazing way to do that. To have boys and girls having the same conversations in the one group on the one night is pretty amazing and pretty forward thinking, I think, as well.
Fantastic. I'm glad we are excelling in that area. And you, Caitlin, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, I'm with Josh on it. I think we were both really surprised in a great way to hear that that's how Bayside does it, which is awesome. For me, in terms of the whole inclusivity and unity in a way, because unity comes into it, I just place a massive importance on celebrating not only our similarities, but celebrating the differences that we have with people. And just celebrating that, because in knowing that, like me and Josh, we're different, and that God is going to use us for different things and going to speak to different people because of those differences. That's something that we should be celebrating rather than focusing on and making a bad thing. Like, let's celebrate the fact that we're different and we're united in that. That's something that I'm super passionate about.
Yeah, fantastic. And a lot of that's to do with hearing each other's stories, isn't it? When we hear stories and you develop compassion. One of the connect groups that I've been involved in this year, it's been absolutely wonderful because people each week, a different person each week, has told their story and a part of their story they wanted to tell. And it's incredible to see how it breaks down the walls and we get to understand each other a little bit more. We can appreciate the differences. Those things that sort of, you might think, oh, that annoys me. Now you understand where it comes from or whatever. It generates compassion and understanding. And so, it's really important that we get to hear our stories, and maybe, connect groups is a place for that to happen. Yeah. Now, we have a question or a statement more like it from Leslie St. Clair, which we're going to post here. And she says, we'll need to work on your initiations. I think that's a little tongue-in-cheek thing, but I'm curious about the whole initiation things for youth. Is that something that you see as being something you would love to introduce or develop at Bayside Youth? Do you see it being important in the life of a youth person? I think about the Jewish, bat mitzvah and bar mitzvah, which was like an initiation right for adulthood. And I'm not saying doing the same thing. I'm just like, those rites of passage.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it'd be great.
Having them. Yeah.
Yeah.
Keeps things interesting.
Yeah, it does.
We'll
definitely. I think that'd be awesome.
I'll need you to think about that and ponder about that. Okay.
Yeah.
It's a moment. Now, the next question I wanted to ask you. You both come from backgrounds where your parents have been. Your parents are pastors. You've got church. Generations who've been pastoring. I think that was you, Caitlin. I think you said that you've got grandparents even who were pastoring. Is that correct? Yeah. So I'm curious to know from both of you, what are some of the learnings just from not, being pastors' kids that you will take into your own ministry? Josh, do you want to talk into that?
Yeah. For me, I learnt mainly from my mum just how to be in a position where you're not on stage all the time, but you're still having this huge impact behind the scenes. And I saw her do incredible things for generational ministry. And on top of that, just taking your family with you along the journey and including them in pretty much every decision you make within the church. And I've loved being included in my parents' decisions when they go forward with church stuff, and I love that. And I think family is so important, and to have a family within a church family and be able to carry that through, I think is really, really cool.
And I guess that's an important thing for you as you go on to get married with Gabby, you know, making those decisions together. I guess is an important thing as you in ministry.
Yeah, and when I was going to accept this job, I didn't want to do this without her, and we're on this journey together, and she's gonna be in this church, and we've already started loving it and already feeling like we're a part of this family. So it's already been amazing, and we can't wait to do this journey together, and she's going to be included in any decision I make, and it's going to be amazing.
Great. Thank you for sharing. What about you, Caitlin?
Yeah, I think growing up as a part, my dad is a pastoral care pastor, so he doesn't he does preach, but he doesn't preach as much. And my grandpa was very much a pastoral care pastor as well. And so I think growing up in those environments where literally from when I was born, and probably since I can't even remember, our door has like always been open to every single person. And I'll remember experiences of just some random person in my kitchen just having a cup of tea with my mum and my dad, and just that sort of thing. For me, I have learnt the insane like simplicity of what it takes to meet people's needs. And I think we just so easily overcomplicate ministry, and you'll probably hear me say this again, this is something that I say all the time, is that we tend to overcomplicate in our minds what it actually takes to love someone and what it takes to care for someone. And interestingly, Josh touched on it before when he said he preached about what breaks your heart. Something that's always been tuned into me is that the lines from Hosanna, how it says, break your heart,
Yes.
break my heart for what breaks yours. And I actually rate that Josh brought that up, because that's literally something that one of my main things is just that I've always been taught to, for my heart to be broken for what breaks his. And that's something that I've just grown up with. And that's actually crazy that Josh brought that up. But I'm sure he'll agree with me in the fact that like when you're just a pastor's kid, like it's like almost like you have this invaluable like experience on your, not resume, but like that's the type of thing it is. It's just ingrained into you, and it becomes natural what it takes to love somebody and what it takes to just meet people where they're at.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, you both get insight into what it takes to look after people and to care for them and to love for them. And so, you know, there's always a danger that you can glamorize it and think it's, you know, ministry is always glamorous and you're up there on the pulpit. Well, no, majority, 99%, it's not in the pulpit. It's not underestimating the pulpit. It's how we are loving people and caring for people on an everyday basis.
Absolutely.
And
100%.
business. Yeah. So that's really, really cool. Okay, so I'm curious to know, what's your hope for the next generation? Anyone who wants to take the floor can take the floor on that one.
I think we're probably going to have pretty similar responses once again, but for me,
well, you can't work with these for 2 days and you're already in sync. I love
it. Yeah, literally. That's so funny. But for me, I think that when I think about what I want to see, like the generation under me experience, is that I want them to be a generation that it reminds me of Jeremiah, I think it's 17. It's 17, I think, where the tree planted by the waterbed and going through drought and still lives and withstands it all. I want to see a generation that is so like has this deep faith, so that when the inherent experiences of life and going into the real world and growing up and having more pressures as you get older, that we can instill in these youth that if you are so deeply planted in God, that's what helps you to survive those droughts. So that's what I really want to see.
Fabulous. That's a fantastic vision. In actual fact, the beginning of the year, before COVID hit, one of our Connect Group overseers, Luke, he had that picture of that tree being so, you know, deeply rooted and planted. And, you know, he saw this kind of battering And yet we did not know what was about to unfold in the year that was lying ahead for us. It's just been such a critical image, that image of the tree, that no matter what comes, what storms, being deeply rooted in God is what is going to sustain us through anything. So to have that as a vision and hope for the younger generation is gold. Josh, what about you? Any thoughts there for yourself, your personal hopes for the next generation?
I just want to see them do incredible things. I feel like a lot of people have a little bit of doubt on this next generation and what they can do for the church. But for me, growing up in the church and seeing my friends already start to do incredible things, and then the generation below me already seeing them just flourish and be amazing, I can't wait to, I guess, in a way, prove people wrong and say to people that we're not just a wasted generation, but we're the next generation that's going to rise up above every challenge we're faced. And we've already been faced with 2020 and what's been hit by that. And I'd say even the world as a whole has done incredible to come out of this, especially Australia with bushfires at the start of the year and all that happened then, and then going through COVID. But yeah, I think this generation is going to be so strong, and my hope is that they just keep that strength and not divide from each other, because the strength is going to be something that, just separates them from any generation before them.
So good.
I'm inspired by that. I really love that. It, my parents grew up in World War II, and so as children, and so they came through that with incredible resilience as a result. And so do you see this year being a similar thing, that even though it's been incredibly difficult and there have been mental health challenges, do you see it building resilience in youth, that it will spur them on to do greater things?
Yeah, 100%. I see that, and the comparison between both is pretty incredible. And I think I was in a lecture one day, and it was, my lecturer said to me, he's like, I am sorry for how we ruined the world. And I was like, I was a bit blown away, because he apologized for a generation of people, and I was a bit confused, but then he just explained some things to me, and he was like, I'm sorry, but I can't wait for this next generation to rise up and to bring this world to its glory. And with this generation walking alongside Jesus, and he was awesome and just kept encouraging me, but not just me, but this generation, because he saw it in his grandkids and saw it in his own kids as well. So I thought that was pretty amazing.
Yeah, fabulous. That's so good. All right, so I've got a couple more questions for you, and then I'm going to do a little exercise with you. But what is in the Bible, and tell us why? What's your go-to? Like, where do you always just go, I love this book?
You go, Caitlin.
All right, I'm up. I love Philippians. That's probably my favorite book. It's just because it was literally the first book that I read out of high school, and I had no clue of anything really in the Bible. So that was the first book that I read, and the thing that I get out of it is just this insurmountable joy that we can get from living a life with Christ, and it really the thing that will always stick into my head is the difference between happiness and joy, and that's probably the reason why I love it so much, is just that we're so encouraged in this world and in this society to find happiness in what we do, but we should encourage each other to find joy, because that's where it's all out. Yeah. Oh
yeah, you preach it, girl. Do a message on that. Get that prepared. And Josh, what about you?
It sounds a bit cliche, but for me, it is Joshua. But it's the leadership qualities that come with that book. I think there is so much leadership and wisdom in that. And as we were just talking about resilience and how I feel like that tribe needed to be resilient, to walk around that wall so many times for it to be knocked down, and to have faith in God, to let him just take that and all this noise. And I feel like this generation is making a lot of noise. So for me, that just speaks truth, I think.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. Yeah, you can get a message ready on that too. That'll be cool. So
Yeah.
would I surmise to say that your favourite Bible character in the Bible's Joshua then? Is that like a double?
It is a double,
or is
yes.
there another Bible character that you absolutely love?
Nah, he's my favourite.
Who's the close
and I think
second?
it's easy to pick. It's just the leadership qualities that he carries, and learning from Moses, I think is incredible. And to be able to just take that mantle from Moses as well, because Moses is this huge character in the Bible who was an incredible leader. And for Joshua to take that and go, okay, I'm going to do this, but I'm going to do this through God. And yeah, for me, it just speaks truth. Having the name Joshua, it just kind of works.
Yeah, sure. I'm curious to know, who's your favourite female Bible character?
For me, it's Ruth.
Yep, she's a standout, isn't she?
Massively, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, and Caitlin, what about you? Who's your favourite Bible character?
My favourite Bible character is Moses. It would have to be just a classic. But I just think like learning more of his story, because don't really hear most of his story, but just to know that like the simple part of him being like around about 80 years old when God first called him to speak to Pharaoh, I think is the coolest thing ever, is the fact that like God, and like when you see not even just like his ministry life, but before that, and how like he was like probably the only Hebrew boy to live, and he was survived the Nile, and all of these incredible like coincidences, was God preparing him for a moment to speak at 80 years old. I think that's the coolest thing, just to know that like we have hope in knowing that God is continuously working in us to the point where he's going to call us.
Yeah, and there's no barrier, like, he's 80. So if there's anyone who's 80 over watching here tonight or approaching 80, God's not done with you yet. God's not done with anyone.
Absolutely.
We've got air in our lungs, we're here, and God is able to do incredible things through us. All he's really looking for is a willing heart and an open heart, ready to serve. And so who's your favourite female Bible character?
Classic Esther.
Okay.
Gotta be, yeah.
If I have to perish, I perish. Is that the idea?
100%.
Yeah, very cool, very cool. Well, I don't think we have any more questions from our audience. So what is one thing you kind of would love? Ross has said we have used by date. I don't know about that. Do we agree with that? I don't think so.
Yeah.
To know.
Sorry, you cut out for a second.
Sorry, I dropped out there.
Yep.
Yeah, apologies about that. What is something that you would really love our youth to know? Going into 2021, what's something that you would really love for them to know and be imparted with over this summer break?
That they're strong. For me, it's that you are so strong, and that you can do all things when you have faith in Christ, and you can do all things when you just give your life to him. And even if you're not ready to fully give, just walk down the path and ask questions. It's okay to ask questions, and it's okay to have those questions and not have answers, because that's what the Bible's for, and that's what praying is great for, and talking to people is for as well. And what you're going through is normal, and just be strong.
Yeah, awesome. And yourself, Caitlin?
Yeah, that's so good, Josh. I think, along similar lines, just that, I think that we are so often like, God is going to use me in 5 years' time, or when I'm 25, 30, 35, he's going to use me then. And I think that like the youth should just be constantly reminded that he is going to use you where you're at in this moment, because he's blessed you in this moment, not only when you're older. And I think just to remind the youth that some of the greatest lessons that I have learned and some of the greatest growth that I've experienced was from my youth in my old church. And I'll put my hand up and say that a 15-year-old has probably taught me more about the love of God than that anyone older than me has. So I just think that just being reminded of that, like, he can use you, and it doesn't matter what you're doing in your life right now, he's going to use you. And that's probably what I'd say.
Yeah, that's a sensational reminder, actually, because, even if I just, as you're talking, and obviously we're in the Advent period when we're leading up to celebrating the Christ child, and you think about Mary, and we think about her being, a mere teenager who, this scary looking angel appears, and she was beautifully used by God, magnificently used. And it was that openness of just saying, yes, I am the Lord's servant.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter what age, and it can start at any age, at any point. So you make a really valid point, and I hope, our youth grab a hold of that God can use you wherever you are at. You only have to seek him. So in wrapping up tonight, I've got a little exercise, and I know you'll be familiar with this exercise. You have to give one answer I'm going to give you the option to choose one answer, okay? So the first one I kind of already know, because this has been plastered all over Insta already. Okay.
Okay. Yep.
Yeah.
Caitlin, scrunch or fold?
Scrunch.
Joshua, scrunch or fold?
Fold.
Fold. And for those who don't understand what that means, it's all got to do with we're always going to call into some kind of conversation. All right, here's the next one. Joshua, savoury or sweet?
Sweet, but no dairy.
Right, lactose free?
Just dairy,
no dairy
free.
Dairy free. Caitlin, savoury or sweet?
Savoury.
Very good. Caitlin, Insta or TikTok?
Instagram. 100%.
Joshua, I'll be fascinated. Instagram or TikTok?
For fun times, TikTok. If I want to have a really good laugh, TikTok. But
it's one answer.
Instagram.
One answer.
I can't. I use them for different things. I'll go Instagram. I'll look it on Instagram. Yeah.
Right. Okay, Josh, books or music?
Oh, music, 100%. You won't see me in a book.
Right. Caitlin, books or music?
Music, but I love reading, but music all the way.
Okay. Caitlin, tea or coffee?
Tea.
Oh, really? Oh, okay.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. Yep.
Is that the English-Irish background?
I think it is. I genuinely think it is, because my dad was pumping tea into me since I was probably not old enough.
Okay. Josh, tea or coffee?
Coffee, 100%, every day.
Good to know. All right. Marvel or DC? Go, both of you.
Marvel. Caitlin has a bad opinion about superheroes.
It's like neither.
I don't really have a preference, but I would probably go DC.
DC. All right.
Josh's face.
There's lots for you to work through. This is all about your differences, remember?
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
Beach or country?
Beach.
Country.
Country girl, okay, and beach guy. All right. Netflix or cinema?
Wait, so
Netflix.
you cut out. What was the second option?
Netflix or cinema?
Oh, yeah, Netflix. Yep.
Netflix.
Those poor cinema
In
places.
cinema?
Oh. Yeah, in cinema.
Okay.
You prefer doing Netflix in a cinema at home, I guess. Summer, winter. We're going to land on the last two, and then we're going to wrap up. Summer.
Yeah.
Summer or winter?
Winter.
Wow.
Yeah, we're getting different for a lot of things.
Yeah, and it's a very important one to end on, which our youth will want to know. Quarter pounder or Big Mac?
Big Mac.
Ooh. Quarter pounder.
Right. Well, there's lots for you guys to work through this year.
Definitely.
Lots of opportunities to courageously love each other.
Yeah.
But more importantly, empower each other to become more like Jesus. So we look forward to that.
Yep.
I want to thank you both for joining me tonight in what has been a very enlightening chat, and I'm sure everyone who's joined us tonight has just loved getting to know you a little bit more as you join the Bayside fam. We're rapt to have you, and we're looking forward to what's going to happen in the year ahead and for all our youth. And so I want to thank you guys, and thank everyone who has joined us here tonight. And Pastor Rob will be back next week for his regular Q&A at 8 p.m. And so please, any questions that you have for him, feel free to message him, and he will look forward to answering those. And so thanks, guys. Take care, and we'll see you soon.
Thanks.
Bye.